What's better than fantasy football? Kyle Fridland, Jake Fridland.
Ain't nothing better than football.
Two brothers talking about the nitty and gritty of the best sport in the world. Welcome to the Fantasy Simpletons Show! What's up, guys? It's Kyle Fridland of the Fantasy Simpletons. It's just me today. It's just me, but that's okay because I'm going to give you the Week 11 start sits of fantasy football. As we get closer, the weeks go by, we're getting closer to the fantasy playoffs. If you need help with every game, every matchup, we are here for it. As you can see on the screen here, we have our Week 11 buys as well. There's not as many buys as we usually have. Two teams, we've usually had 6 or 4, so 2 is a lot more manageable. Most of it coming from the Colts side with obviously Jonathan Taylor, Daniel Jones, Michael Pittman, Tyler Warren, even guys like Alec Pierce and Josh Downs. But there's still a couple notable names like Juwan Johnson has been getting good over the last few weeks, but Chris Olave can be a big hit to some fantasy teams. And if you end up liking the video, please try to watch through as much as you can, like the video. If you have any start or sit questions that you would like to get answered, please let us know in the comments down below. Without any further ado, let's just get right into it. Start flexing! Start flexing! Let's go! By the way, for any of the Jonathan Taylor managers out there, I wonder how they're going to do without a guy scoring 40 to 50 points every week. Gosh, that must be nice. But we'll start off with Thursday Night Football. We're going to have the Patriots, the 8-2 Patriots, one of the top teams in the AFC, going up against one of the worst teams in the AFC in the same division, the New York Jets. Now, we can look up some of the matchups here. Obviously, Drake May, he's great every single week. He's one of the top quarterbacks this season, MVP candidate. You should be playing him in this matchup. But who I'm more interested in right now is actually Travion Henderson. We got it, guys. We finally did it. After so many weeks, it looks like Travion is finally back on essentially becoming that guy that we want him to be. With all the weeks, and it did have to take a few injuries. Gibbs not trained for anybody in the deadline, and the Ramondre Stevenson injury, who I think we're not sure if he's going to play this Thursday or not. If he does play, I assume like a limited workload because it is still a foot injury. I think Mike Vrabel actually had a quote that said, and I quote, he wants to feed Travion Henderson a big load tonight. Hey, don't shoot the messenger. That's just the quote. But honestly, Travion Henderson should probably be started this week after the big plays he had, the big chunky yardage that he got last week against the Bucs. I think he is an absolute start for this week, just to go off of the good graces of the previous week. Though I hope, man, because we've seen over this season, a lot of times we got our hopes up for Travion Henderson, but it doesn't actually result in anything. Let's see if Mike Vrabel actually sticks to his word. Receiving side, most of the time, flexes and sits on the Patriots side. They're very hard to predict week to week, so most of the time, I just have some of the better players in flexes, some others in sits. Matt Collins broke off a bit in the Buccaneers game last week. I still would be hesitant to play him, unless if Booty ends up being out, I think you can take a risk on him as a flex play if you would like. For me personally, I would stick away. And the Jets side, oh my gosh, the Jets side. So Garrett Wilson got hurt again. He went down. He didn't look good in that game to begin with, but then he went down. He's going to be out another 3 to 4 weeks. Try to have him prepared for when you hit the fantasy playoffs, but this team looks terrible. It's just an awful offense. Just if Justin Fields playing this game, I can't imagine. If you're a head coach, I can't imagine if you're Aaron Glenn and you still have to put Justin Fields out there. The amount of yardage that he's been getting, 40 yards, 50 yards in games, this is not just for redraft. This is advice for Superflex leagues. This is advice for Dynasty. Just don't play him. Like, the lows are just too low. And he's not worth the risk if he gets 0 points, 1 point, 2 points, or negative points in that week. Mason Taylor, cautiously a flex this week. There have been times where we've been prepped before. We've been told this before of like, oh, Mason Taylor's going to have great weeks because, oh, now he's the only weapon there with Garrett Wilson out, and it's resulted in nothing. With a passing offense this bad, you can't guarantee anything. For desperate teams, I'd say flex him, but try to look for more options. Breece Hall, yeah, you'll probably start him, but he'll probably fall somewhat into flex as well. We can go straight into the Sunday games now, where we've got the Commanders taking on the Dolphins. On the Commander side, it's a little tough, mostly because of just the amount of injuries that they've had this season and the lack of overall depth of talent on that offense. I just don't find a lot of players startable at the moment. Deebo Samuel and Zach Ertz are okay. They should be okay for the majority of the season, falling into flex territory, or Zach Ertz being a sort of makeshift start tight end every week. He'll be okay. You'll know what to expect from him. But guys like, I don't know, like Bill Krosky-Merritt, for example, or Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, however you call him, he just doesn't look that good. There's too much around him that's just not going well, and now that they're getting Chris Rodriguez or McNichols just as involved, he's just not getting enough opportunities and not making enough with those opportunities for me to start him. On the Dolphins side, though, Jaylen Waddle, I got to give him props, man. I didn't think he would even be in the top 30 wide receivers this season. But since that Tyreek Hill injury, he stepped it up. He's stepped up his game. He has looked great. If you see if he's highlighted in green, that's because he is my start of the week at wide receiver. I don't know. I just think he's an absolutely great wide receiver right now. This is the best he's looked in years. And whether it's with the Dolphins or with another team, he's going to get paid this season. Even though I don't think they should. They should realistically tear this whole thing down going into next year. Whether Tua's the quarterback or not, I'm not really sure. That contract makes it a lot more difficult. But personally, even against the Commanders' bad defense, still wouldn't play Tua. And just kind of, honestly, waiting on Darren Waller, who maybe some people should consider as like a little injury stash coming into the fantasy playoffs if you're having trouble at tight end. But how about the Panthers versus the Falcons here? I got to take a breath. With the Panthers, it's kind of business as usual. We've seen these teams before, although last time these teams faced, it was a complete boat race for the Panthers, where they absolutely demolished the Falcons here. So we got to make something of this. The best that I can think is that Rico Dowdle, obviously, you're probably going to want to start him almost every week now, just off the good graces of what he's done so far starting. McMillan, he's kind of, it's weird putting him in a flex spot because I've had him as a starter for most of this season, but I'm just right now, I just see a low ceiling. Like he's got a pretty decent floor. He's got like a high floor. He'll get you around 10 points a game, but he doesn't get a lot of touchdowns. This team doesn't throw for a lot of yards. So, it kind of is just weird in a sense. He's a flex player. You'll probably, in most teams, if you have him, you'll probably find a way to start him unless you have great receiver depth. But I would look towards some options this week. But on the Falcons side of things, Michael Penix, I have noticed that when he is at home, he performs a lot better at home than on the road. His numbers, his statistics, they're all a lot better. He actually could be fantasy viable, but cautiously, I'm going to put him as a sit right now because I think there are much better options on the waiver wire, much better options streaming for this week. However, if you're in a Superflex league, yeah, I think he can definitely be playable this week. I think they'll be much better than they were when they faced the Panthers the last time. Drake London and Kyle Pitts, I actually think they're both going to be starters this week. Kyle Pitts, I think, is actually going to have a much better performance. He kind of follows the same track record as Michael Penix. He performs a lot better at home. And Drake London, Dude, if you're not playing Drake London every week, you're insane. Because every game that he's played in, he's been an absolute killer, a monster. Over 100 yards in most of his games, touchdowns in almost every one of his games he's been playing since he was off that cold streak. If you trade for him early in the season when he was struggling, you're the one winning right now. But dude, it's kind of a lower matchup, but it's what you would expect of both teams. But we still have, this is a big one, and I'm excited for this one. This is the Bucs taking on the Bills. With the Bucs, there's always a lot of possible starting options, even when they're going up against good defenses. Mayfield, obviously, Egbuka. Whether we see Bucky Irving playing is questionable. He's been like that for a while now. But if he doesn't play, Rachaad White kind of falls into flex-ish territory. He's not great, but if you need a guy, if you need a slot to be filled and you're in a bit of a pickle, maybe Rachaad White could work. You're kind of looking for a touchdown from him, though. But K. Dalton, I said in my waiver wire video, he's going to be a great addition to this offense with all the injuries that are going on, with Godwin going to be out till early December. Mike Evans will be gone until late into the season. Jalen McMillan, there's no timetable on his return. The last time we saw Cade Otton by himself, it worked great. It was great for him. Last season, he kept getting a lot of catches, a lot of yards, touchdowns. It's honestly, if you're in that position, I think you should play him this week, unless you already have a bigger name behind him, because let's be honest, you probably got him off the waiver wire. Even Tez Johnson, I think, is sort of flexible in this matchup, which is not the easiest matchup, but he's kind of fulfilling that like a Jalen McMillan role when Jalen McMillan was gone. You know, he might be 100 pounds soaking wet, but dude, this guy can fly. He can break tackles. He'll hit every move in the Madden playbook to try to get a touchdown. With the Bills, I always struggle with finding something new to say about them. Like they kind of fall in the same position every week, even with the fact of Kincaid being questionable. It's like that's happened for about half the year at this point. Keon Coleman, good job, buddy. You had a few catches and a big touchdown play. Well done. You're still not startable in my mind. You're still not playable right now. We'll have to see, but each week that goes on, it makes it feel less likely that you're going to be that guy. I would look to Khalil Shakir, who, honestly, Khalil Shakir is actually one of my favorite players. This guy, nobody talks about him ever, but he's so solid, dependable, reliable. If you're just in a jam, he's the guy that will unjam you out of that jam. He's the unjam jammer. What? Anyways, James Cook as well. He's going to be a great start going forward in this game. Absolutely look to pick him up. How about next? We have the Jaguars taking on the Chargers. This game is a little fascinating to me. First, let's talk about Oronde Gadsden, because Gadsden is going to be questionable. He's day-to-day with this injury. Whether he plays or not, I don't think it's going to depend too much for the other receiving options. For the Chargers, we've kind of gone into it every week of like, okay, any one of these guys could have a big game. But now we're starting to see a bit of a change here. That Ladd McConkey is finally, over the last few weeks, I just need a little bit more data to put it together. But yeah, he's finally getting back to that Ladd McConkey we know him to be. He's becoming dominant. He's getting big games and big plays. He's finally breaking out of like, okay, it's not just a trio, like a gaggle of receivers. We have this one guy who now is kind of the 1A, and the others are like good 2s at the moment. I still think Keenan Allen and Quinton Johnston are playable, especially against this awful Jacksonville Jaguars secondary. I think Gadsden is still playable if he comes back or not. Justin Herbert, obviously. And Kamani Vidal, he's weird. I kind of have to just keep him in flex because he's high risk, high reward. We have no idea if this guy's going to do well week to week. Some weeks he goes off, some weeks he completely disappears. So until Amarian Hampton comes back, Vidal's just going to be in as a possible flex option if you want to take that risk on him or not from week to week. With this on the Jacksonville side, Jacksonville, dude, you gotta pick up those wins. You gotta finish those close games. How did you let the Texans beat you like that with Davis Mills, man? It's a confusing group of players, but I just feel like I'm more and more out on this team week to week. I don't like starting Trevor Lawrence in this game. I haven't liked starting him the last few weeks. Bretton Strange, my guy. Maybe he might come back in this matchup. I personally like him, but I know there are a lot better tight ends out there than him at the moment. ETN's the only one I'd really sit. With Brian Thomas Jr., we don't know exactly what's going to happen with him, but man, what happened to you, Brian Thomas? What happened to the guy, the man, the myth, the legend that won me last season? I don't know. But if we're going to talk about the receivers real quick, at what point does Jakobi Meyers come back and possibly make an impact? I'm not sure. Most of the time with the trade deadline receivers that are traded, you don't know how good they're going to be week to week in the first few weeks. You expect them to still be learning the offense to start getting a little better with it. I'd actually prefer Parker Washington over Jakobi Meyers for the short term, for the next couple of weeks before Jakobi Meyers gets like fully situated in. But, that's just me. Ooh, I like this. This is a fascinating matchup, divisional matchup. It's going to be the Bears going up against the Vikings. So let's start with the Bears side because it's on my left. I'm a lefty. If anybody hasn't noticed, they are so fascinating because in most games they look bad until the last fourth quarter, where Caleb Williams and the offense just kind of wakes up, and they've gotten a couple big wins that have made it feel like, oh, maybe this team, maybe they've got that dog in them, Maybe this team is somebody that can actually take it the distance, or not take it the distance, but maybe like a culture shift, because the Bears used to be the type of team that would blow these leads all the time. But now they're the ones figuring it out. They're the ones getting it together in the end. I don't know if it's Ben Johnson. I don't know if it's just Caleb Williams finally waking up. But it's very interesting to me. And the Vikings defense has looked pretty bad this year. A very disappointing group of what usually is a pretty good defense year to year. So I think most of the players that you expect to be startable are startable. Monangai, maybe. Kyle Monangai is between DeAndre Swift and Monangai. You never really know what you're going to get out of Monangai. I think Swift is still going to have more carries overall, but I think they might use Monangai more on goal line work, but even that might be a little sketchy. He's a risky flex for this week, but I'd still have him at flex because this defense is that bad. Same with Colston Loveland, who I think we're going to see get better as the season goes on, and I think he'll be a decent fill-in option at tight end, maybe a guy that can get you 8 to around 10 points a game. I think that's okay. And Odunze, guys, we don't know which player is going to do bad week to week, because a couple weeks ago, Rome Odunze was the one that got a goose egg. Last week, it was DJ Moore with a complete goose egg. So we're just going to have to see. I think Moore might be hurt, but I don't know. Even without that, it's going to be difficult to predict, but most weeks go with Odunze. Start Odunze because he has that high upside, and I still think he's the number one target in this passing offense. Speaking of number one targets, Justin Jefferson. He's still startable. He's still startable week to week, but you're starting to see there's kind of a ceiling with him right now in terms of how big he can be this season, how great he can be with JJ McCarthy still figuring it out, still developing, not being the most prolific passer. And that's going to affect Addison too. I will say, because this matchup is so good for them, I will cautiously say that, yeah, Jordan Addison's probably a lower end wide receiver 2 this week, but he needs a couple things to happen. He needs some of those big plays. I don't want to play either of the running backs in this situation. I'm just not a fan of Aaron Jones and Jordan Mason has completely fallen out of favor. Not with the team, just with me. I mean, the last few games, he's only gotten like the amount of carries I can fit on one hand. It's not good for Jordan Mason, who started off the season so well, and I was so excited for and happy to see. But yeah, sometimes it's just like that, though. You can't really change it. But in this tough divisional matchup, I think it's going to be a high scoring one, at least on the Bears side, and McCarthy will have to make a lot of plays to try to catch up and play off of them. We got another matchup here. We got the Packers taking on the Giants. With the Giants, there's a bit of news that came out of the last couple of days.
You're fired!
Brian Dable was the little what at the end. Brian Dable was officially fired from the New York Giants after they had a 2-8 record. It makes sense. It's justifiable. Look, I know everybody could say like, oh, he was never properly given a chance when he had Daniel Jones, or he was never given a chance this season with how bad their schedule was and how their offense was set up. You can say that about so many coaches, though, that have been fired over the years. There have been so many coaches that have been set up terribly, had no chance of success, but they were fired anyways. Plus, Brian Daboll did allow, of like the last month, some of the most egregious comeback wins from their opponents I've seen in a long time. So if anything, I think this firing, he was a dead man walking either way. And Jackson Dart, questionable to be in this game. With the amount of times he's been checked for a concussion, he feels like a dead man walking too. I am genuinely very concerned for Jackson Dart because he's very talented, but the way he runs, he needs to change up his style. He's not Josh Allen. He's not Cam Newton. He is trying to take the same mentality of Cam Scatterboot of just like run through them head first, but it's not going to be good for him long term. It's not going to be good for the team long term. So I hope that, if not this season, I hope going into next season, he's going to get more training on that. There's going to be more of instinctual, take big runs, but go down, not try to take big hits, because they got something in him. And without him in this lineup, this team, oh, it's going to be a long season, dude. This freaking team. If Russell Wilson is playing, I just don't know. I can't start anybody if Russell Wilson's playing, man. I just can't do it. If Jackson Dart does manage to play, I could see people starting Theo Johnson, possibly, who's been getting a lot better as the season goes along. I actually like him as a dynasty candidate, like a low-risk dynasty guy you can have over the next couple of years, see what you have in him, because he's very good, and he's very athletic. But everyone else I just don't see as playable. I don't see it too different on the Packers side either. I'm not a big fan of Jordan Love. I kind of haven't been a big fan of Jordan Love going back to last season. I just kind of see him as like not in a bad way. It's like he's above average in the NFL. He's a pretty decent quarterback in the NFL. He's bang average for fantasy, but even in the best games he's played this season, I haven't been that impressed. And man, I thought the second they lost Tucker Kraft, it's like this offense is going to take a nosedive. This passing offense is going to be a lot worse, because I always thought Tucker Kraft was like the X factor of that passing game. He was the one like keeping it all together. He was the glue holding it up, and now it's all falling down. And it's not going to help with some of the other injuries. I mean, Romeo Doubs is hurt. Jaden Reed might come back from his injury. We don't know. Matthew Golden is hurt. I saw them in that last game. They were playing Bo Melton. They were playing Slater. What is his main name? It's Miller Heath. Miller Heath. They were playing Miller Heath. Too much Savion Williams for my liking. That's when you know you're in a bad spot, when you're like, Savion Williams, we need you multiple times on this drive. Jacobs is the only one that's really startable here, but man, try to avoid this matchup at all costs in my mind. But now we're going into a matchup that could be the exact opposite of that. We got Unkable 2.0, ladies and gentlemen. We got the Bengals taking on the Steelers once again, this time going into Pittsburgh. Joe Flacco is my start of the week at quarterback for this week. Last time these two teams faced, it was so much fun to watch two 40-plus-year-old quarterbacks slinging it like they're 20 years old again. It's just the best. It's just absolutely the best. Joe Flacco he's been on such a monster tear this season, mostly because he has to keep up with one of the worst passing defenses I have ever seen with the Cincinnati Bengals. Like, it's that bad. It's that bad, guys. I just don't see how it can get any better. On the flip side of the Yunk Bowl, you have Aaron Rodgers, who I think is going to have a big bounce back after the atrocious stinker that he had against the Chargers on Sunday Night Football. Both these quarterbacks should be putting up points in this matchup. Or it's an AFC North matchup where they both hardly score any points, because sometimes the AFC North is like that. But I think it's more likely that it's going to be the latter. How does this affect some of the offenses from the quarterbacks down? Well, on the Bengals side, it's pretty much expected with Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. Chase Brown, I think, is a pretty strong start. If he keeps getting the amount of targets out of the backfield, he's going to be startable every single week. Undoubtedly, especially great for PPR leagues. On the Steelers, though, man, they really should have gotten Jacoby Myers. I know they matched the offer and he just chose to go to Jacksonville over Pittsburgh. Maybe something to do with no Florida taxes on his guaranteed money. But besides the point, I think most of the big players are playable. DK Metcalf, he is still pretty playable. No, I'm not talking about matchup. I'm thinking season-long overall. He has, 32 receptions on the season? They don't really target him enough. Maybe he's just double-covered a bunch. I kind of saw it as a Seahawks fan myself. You see it a lot in Seattle, where guys like that, they just get double-covered in a way where it's just... it takes him out of the game, and he can't really overcome it. And if he's the only guy there, it's going to happen to him a lot. So he just has to make the most of how many targets and catches that he gets, and you just have to pray for a good week every week. Though this time, it should be a good week. I'd be shocked if it wasn't a good week for him. Warren's going to be great. Calvin Austin, if you're in like deep dynasty, I could see why you would play Calvin Austin. In most smaller leagues, most redraft leagues, I wouldn't play him, even going up against this Cincinnati Bengals defense. It's just, there's not enough there. Oh, man. Wasn't it so nice to have the Titans on a bye week? Gosh, it was so nice to get this out of the way. But now we're back. And we're back with an AFC South matchup. It's going to be the Texans taking on the Titans. The Cam Ward versus Davis Mills matchup that everybody wanted is here. I think I said this the last time that the Titans faced the Texans, which is just nobody's startable. Do not play anybody on the Titans in this matchup. Not even Tony Pollard. No Calvin Ridley. No, just stay away. There's nobody that's playable in this matchup on that side. So I'd actually like to focus on the Texans side of things. Nico Collins did have that big game that I expected him to have. That I think people should be more invested in him. If you trade him before this point, I think you're going to get something good out of this next week or two. Whether Mills is playing, whether Stroud is playing, I think he'll be pretty good in this matchup. Dalton Schultz. Dude, let's give it up to this guy. He's my star of the week at tight end this week. He's been so good pretty much this entire season, and I should have taken better note of this, but the change to a new offensive coordinator for the Texans has resulted in a much bigger role for Dalton Schultz. It has resulted in him being so much better than he was before. I don't know, man. I'm really into him right now. I think he's right outside of the top 10. I think he's going to be a pretty startable tight end for the rest of the season. And in this matchup, he should continue to get high volume and high targets. Marks is flexible. In this game, I haven't found my way to really starting the Texans running backs a lot, but last time that Marks did face the Titans, it was essentially the closest thing he had to his breakout game this season. So I would play him again if you give him the chance. Everybody else, not enough production. I want to see a little bit more out of Jaden Higgins, though. I want to see if he can separate himself a little bit from this complete super group of receivers that the Texans have. Super group is definitely not the right word, but there's a huge amount of just like lower end receivers on this team. And I want to see Higgins separate himself from that group a little more this season. How about this? We're going to go actually into the NFC West now with the 49ers taking on the Cardinals. Marvin Harrison, and I was getting this news just today that Marvin Harrison is going to be out this week having surgery on an appendicitis, and we don't have any timetable on his return currently. I don't know how long-term the injury is going to be, but that is a big blow to certain people in fantasy or in Dynasty. Like I have him in Dynasty, and I am losing at receiver. I have lost so many guys to injury. I am in such a bad spot now, but enough about me. In this matchup, it makes it a lot tougher to play someone like Jacoby Brissett, if like Trey McBride, who isn't even on this list, because anybody that's pretty much at the top of their position right now, I don't have him in the starts or sits because it feels a little unnecessary. Like we're going to play him no matter what, no matter who they're facing. But in this matchup in particular, Brissett, he's looked decent the last couple of weeks, but I wouldn't play him. I wouldn't play any of the running backs either. It's just, this doesn't seem like a good week for anybody outside of McBride. And the Niners, what can I say about the Niners that I haven't said about them already? I mean, George Kittle is going to be good. George Kittle is definitely going to be good. He's definitely going to be usable within this. Jawan Jennings is a risky flex start. Sometimes he's good, sometimes he's not. And Mac Jones, not playable. Ricky Pearsall, we'll see, but he pretty much hasn't been healthy for the majority of this season, ever since he got that injury. And every time it seems like we're getting a little bit closer, he's still just deemed out. So I'm just going to assume he's out for the next few weeks until they actually come out and say he's playing. So I would just assume that if you're with him. So yeah, for this matchup, this is stars only. This is McCaffrey. This is Kittle. Everybody else is like playable, but at your own risk. Ooh, we're here, boys. Big time Seahawks fan around here. Just going to put this over the headphones. This is our biggest matchup of the season so far. It's going to be the Seahawks taking on the Los Angeles Rams in a big NFC West division matchup. Not just NFC West. This could be a big matchup for the NFC as a whole. If I just take that off there. But, so let's deep dive into this a little bit. Now, the Rams, they have a very tricky defense. They have a very good defense this season. So, Darnold is playable, but he wouldn't be my first choice. He'd be a guy where if I have a quarterback in flex, it means I kind of have him outside of like the top 12 slightly, but they're still playable if you're in need of a quarterback. Just because I want to give him props because I think he's been terrific as a quarterback this year, at least in the NFL. I know for fantasy he's been kind of hit or miss, but as good of a player as he's been in this offense for this team, if you need to play him, I could see why you would play him. Charbonnet is flexible just because he's a touchdown or bust. And I'll focus on Shaheed real quick because people were really hyped up about playing Shaheed last week. People really like Shaheed. I've always been cautious. I'm always cautious about trade deadline wide receivers. And I tried to tell people, it's like, hey, I know this is his former offensive coordinator, Clint Kubiak from the Saints, but he still needs time to get fully involved in the offense. He still needs time to get his feet wet. They were going to use him in a limited way. And also, just try to keep tabs on him for the rest of the season, because I personally am of the belief that he's going to be worse overall than when he was on the Saints. I don't think our offense is set up quite the same way. I think we just use a lot more players. JSN is like the king. He's like the kingpin of the offense. He's the target, and everybody else falls down and trickles into this pile. I think Rashid Shaheed is going to be a great playmaker, and he'll have his moments, but he might fall similar to guys like AJ Barner, Elijah Arroyo, Torrey Horton, and even a tiny bit of Cooper Kupp. I think he's just going to fall into that core of receivers as JSN's our guy here, and then everybody else is over here, and they'll all split catches and playing time, and they'll all get their opportunities. So just keep track of that. I could easily be wrong. Remember, this is not expert advice. This is just a second opinion. And on the other side, Stafford, though, unfortunately, as a fan, I don't like doing this, but I have to put him in this spot because he has been phenomenal. He has been putting up some of the best work, possibly of his career right now. He has been getting, I think he has 13 touchdown passes in the last 3 games alone, and everybody looks great with this. Even with Puka playing or not playing, he's just been awesome. Devontae Adams has been taking full advantage of it. He's become this short red zone threat. If they're just in need of a few yards, they just throw to Adams. So he's become a pretty much must start every week with the amount of volume he's now getting in the end zone. And Kyren Williams is also very good. It's going to be tough in this matchup for him specifically because the Seahawks are going to be, they're very, very stingy run defense. We're one of the best run defenses in the league. I can at least be confident in saying that. So it's going to be a tougher matchup for Kyren, but from the way they use him, especially the chance of them using him in goal line work, which they get to the goal line a lot, I would still play him. Absolutely. How about the Ravens going up against the Browns? Well, maybe how about Quinshon Judkins? This is going to be a little bit surprising, but don't expect the Ravens to completely boat race this matchup. These two teams, specifically the Ravens and the Browns have always been like a sneaky team that upsets the Ravens more often than not. Or at the very least, they keep games close. Do I think this team is really set up to do that? Not necessarily, but there have been many seasons where they haven't been set up to do that, and they still do it. So for everybody just assuming like, oh, everybody's not playable in this Browns game, they're all going to be bad. No, I think Judkins is actually going to be the engine behind this against a bad run defense for the Ravens. Quinshon Judkins is my star of the week at running back this week. Risky, but I will take that risk any freaking day of the week. I mean, and that's kind of it for the Cleveland Browns. I mean, Dylan Gabriel, what are you? He's this ultra conservative quarterback that doesn't like to take any realistic shots because he's so afraid of looking bad. I don't know if it's because he's afraid of looking bad in the stat sheets or doesn't want to upset the coaching. Maybe he's like, no, the conservative strategy, it works. It's a good approach. But right now, it's just, he looked so bad in that Jets game. And the Jets gave them every opportunity to win that game. But he just looked awful in passing the short, the mediate, the long. I don't know. We'll see. Jerry Jeudy. Hey, Jerry Jeudy, finally, after this season, you finally got a good game. It's not enough for me to start you. I need a little bit more evidence than just off of one game. It's a decent sign. It's a good thumbs up of just being like, yeah, you did it. But we have to see just a tiny bit more out of that. Fannin and Njoku, they're both playable tight ends for this week. Again, we've fallen into that position of they kind of both eat away at each other's production. So both of them just only gets about half of what they realistically should if they're both on the field, but they're both playable. I see enough of them going around to where I think Njoku will get some good catches and maybe a touchdown, and Harold Fannin will get big chunk plays. And the Ravens are, same old Ravens. It's the same thing you would expect. Jackson's playable. Derrick Henry's playable. Mark Andrews is always a flex tight end because he's just touchdown or bust. That's kind of what he's been the last couple of years. And Zay Flowers also kind of falls into a similar territory at times, but not in terms of like touchdown or bust, but just being kind of the edge of startable, like a wide receiver 2, like a low end wide receiver 2. He's kind of been in that role the whole time. I think he could still have a good matchup here this week. We've only got a few games left, so we'll just keep trucking along. We got the Chiefs taking on the Broncos. This is such an interesting... Actually, no. Hold on. Bonix. I've had some time to marinate this. Let me get my thoughts out. Bonix, you are like the fully realized version of Tim Tebow. You are... You're pretty much the best version of probably what he could have been, but you still have that sort of disease that Tebow had of not being able to play for the first 3 quarters and then looking great in the 4th quarter. Except for last week, where you looked awful. You have a lot of weaknesses that needs to be ironed out, but he just... I've talked about in previous weeks where he's just like, man, every week when you think you're out on him, he just finds a way to drag you back in. Well, now I don't know. I don't know if I want to be dragged in anymore. You don't like it. You don't want it. You don't want to be a part of it, but just considering what he's done so far this season against the Chiefs, he's a very, very cautious start. Like, I still think he's a good enough quarterback to where it's like, there has to be something there. There has to be something that's startable. It's just up to you if you want to take that risk this week or not. Because I want to see what he's capable of, because he looked so much better last season, but maybe it was because last season the offense was just so set up for him to succeed. The offensive line was great. They had a great offensive line, and even though the run game wasn't that good, I remember seeing he threw so many screen passes to the running backs, to the wide receivers, that just worked out for him, where the offensive scheme worked great. He'll throw a 30-yard touchdown pass, but he didn't throw it past the line of scrimmage. That happened to him a lot last season. And I always thought, man, if he's put in more dangerous scenarios, what's going to happen? Well, deep throws are not good. His deep throwing ability is not good. His throwing while on the run is also not good. He's just a tricky guy to try to figure out as the season goes on. So, I don't know. We'll see. If you have to play him, play him. Franklin. Oh my gosh, Franklin. Franklin is so weird. Because everybody's saying, like, from production-wise, the amount of targets he's getting is matched up with JSN, with Jackson Smith and Jigba. But he's got half the yards, and they don't have a good connection. For as many times as he's targeting Troy Franklin, he's like the opposite of a safety blanket. It's like a blanket that's on fire, but he's still going back to that fire-covered blanket. I don't know. It's tough to do anything with this. Harvey has big play potential, so he's like a risky flex play this week. Cortland Sutton, I'm going to give him one more chance. He's been very volatile and has had some bad weeks this week, but I'm going to give him one more chance against the Kansas City Chiefs here, which, again, all the people you'd expect to start are still startable. Patrick Mahomes, Rashee Rice, Travis Kelce, Xavier Worthy. I'm going to have him sit for the foreseeable future because it just doesn't seem like he gets enough. When Rashee Rice is back, it doesn't seem like he just gets enough volume. Oh, Sunday night. The Lions taking on the Eagles. Big matchup. A matchup we sort of saw last season in the NFC Championship game, and we didn't because of those dang Commanders. But it's back again here. Same people you would expect for the Lions on their side. Gibbs, Montgomery, Laporta, I think Jared Goff will actually have another good week this week when he's going up against the Eagles here. I think he will have a good week. He's up and down, but I think this week's going to work. Jameson Williams. Now, I don't know if this is because of Dan Campbell taking over the play call duties, but Jameson Williams finally had the big game that we were hoping that he would have. Last week was not the big game. He had just a couple receptions. Just one of them was a big play. This was a big game. He had over 100 yards, more than just 2 or 3 receptions. He had a touchdown. If Dan Campbell is going to start calling plays more, or if they're going to find more ways to get Jameson Williams more involved in the offense and get him more opportunities as the season goes along, I just have him in a flex right now, but he could be a pretty startable wide receiver too, if that becomes the case. On the Eagles side of things, they had a real rough game. It was a real rough game. But we'll figure it out here because Jalen Hurts, Barkley, you're just going to start them any single week. I think Devontae Smith is a good start this week. Dallas Goedert has been exceeding all expectations. A.J. Brown, man, what is that exact quote of A.J. Brown exactly? Because somebody said in a comment on our, when I have a TikTok account, Fantasy Simpletons, and one of the comments was left that said, should I trade Rome Odunze for A.J. Brown? Or they assumed Rome Odunze, A.J. Brown. And between those two, I said, yeah, keep Rome Odunze. Easily keep Rome Odunze, because I just don't see it getting better for A.J. Brown this season. Let me pull it up. The exact quote, as he was talking to somebody in Madden, if you got me in fantasy, get rid of me. I mean, what else can I say if the man himself has already said it? You know, and it's such a shame because I think he's a lot more talented of a player than the opportunities they're giving him. It's clear he's just not the central focus of the offense like he was in previous seasons. Maybe there's just some drama or tension backstage, behind the scenes with this team and him. I would honestly be surprised if he's still back next year. Because it just doesn't seem... I just don't see why he would want to at this point. He doesn't seem happy there at all. But we have one more matchup to talk about right now. It is going to be... Look at that. It's the Cowboys taking on the Raiders. We'll get through this one pretty quickly. Not much to talk about. Everybody's startable on the Cowboys. Woo! Every single person. I miss the Cowboys. I miss their offense. I want to see them perform well. Let's see if this is going to be that week. Because the Raiders are a bit of a cupcake. If anybody saw Thursday Night Football, it's just a bad team. They are so bad. Specifically, Geno Smith, look, he's healthy. He's going to be healthy going into this week. He's going to be facing still ranked the worst pass defense in the NFL. They are historically bad. Just because of that, he's an option to be playable if you're looking for a good quarterback this week. However, I've just seen a lot this season that even in good matchups, Geno Smith has found a way to shoot himself in the foot because his offense is not set up for it. So Smith and Trey Tucker are like flex options that you can take a risk on. I actually am more of a fan of Trey Tucker this week than the quarterback. Genty should have a good game. Bowers should, if this team knows what they're doing, he should destroy. Like absolutely in a war path. Just decimate that defense. And he should be the thing that keeps this game competitive. Because if the Raiders can't score on this defense in particular, then there's nothing we can do for them. And that is about it. Man, that was a marathon. Thank you so much for anybody watching. Thank you for checking it out. If you have any start or sit questions, let us know in the comments down below. We love responding. We'll respond back to any one of them. You can follow us on Instagram, on X, on TikTok, where we do weekly waiver wire selections, must starts, must sits, flex plays. You can follow us on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. In a complex fantasy world, just stay simple. God bless everyone.